Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Rolene Marks. This is the Israel Brief brought to you by Lay of the Land, where we bring you those top stories every Monday to Thursday. And just a reminder for you to check out our website for all of our original content at www.layoftheland.online. There's an article up from me all about Whoopi and Amnesty International and surveys and all those kinds of things. It's also up on our Facebook page. You can like, follow, share our content at Lottel's site and view us on YouTube at the Israel Brief, and of course tweet us at Lay of the Land 5. And if you like our content, please consider liking, following, sharing, subscribing, all those wonderful things. But let's take a look at the top stories making headlines this week, which I have to tell you, this week has felt like the longest month of the year. Can't believe all that has gone on. But let's take a look at those top stories, and we begin with another historic visit, this time by Defense Minister Benny Gantz, who is visiting Bahrain, one of our Abrahamic Accords brothers. He is in Manama, the capital, to meet with his counterpart and also sign a whole series of memorandums of understanding about military and security cooperation between our two countries. Earlier yesterday, he visited the US 5th Fleet headquarters, which are stationed there as well. Also a sign not just of the Abraham Accords, because the United States is part of that as well, but also the enduring friendship and diplomatic relationship between our two countries. What was very interesting, though, is that in a press conference, the defense minister announced that Israel had offered military aid to the Lebanese army at least 4 times over the last year. Gantz went on to say that he is hoping that the Lebanese army can be a kind of a counterweight to balance off or to help deal with Iran's proxy Hezbollah, which is very prevalent in Lebanon, and also reiterated that the Lebanese people are not our enemies. It is just the proxies Hezbollah that are financed very heavily by Iran. In other news, we've been covering the Amnesty International report quite a bit lately. It has made headlines, at least in Israel, and strangely enough, not in most of the mainstream media. And I was quite tickled today when I saw Mondoweiss, a vehemently anti-Israel publication, castigate the New York Times for not covering their report. Is the mainstream media getting sick and tired of this nonsense? We certainly hope so. But it has made a lot of headlines here in Israel. In fact, it's dominated the discourse. And the U.S. Senate Foreign Relations Committee has joined in the growing chorus of both the State Department and bipartisan Democrats and Republicans, and is now joined by Australia and Germany, who have also rejected the report. The Foreign Minister of Germany said that it is one-sided and has no place to play in helping to solve the ongoing conflict between Israel and her Palestinian neighbors, and also warns that this kind of rhetoric will only increase anti-Semitism. Scott Morrison, the Australian Prime Minister, said that, no country is perfect, and Australia remains a staunch ally, quote unquote, by Israel's side. So we'll see what the ramifications of this report will be. One area it's certainly bound to hit hard is areas like university campuses. Next month, Israel Apartheid Week is bound to weave its way across university campuses around the world. And the climate is already one of intimidation and sometimes even violence for Jewish students. And we have grave concerns what this report will do for that. But if you want to read something quite astounding and eye-opening, the Times of Israel have an interview with Amnesty International about how they put this report together. It's quite illuminating, but there were several glaring obvious facts or points in this interview. The first was that basically they were kind of having to label Israel with some kind of discriminatory label, so apartheid seemed to do the trick. And also they don't see it as a double standard that they have been called out for investigating Israel and not, say, other countries with gross human rights violations. Definitely food for thought. So check out the timesofisrael.co.il and look out for this article. It really, really is interesting. And while we're on the subject of talking peace processes and all kinds of things, we now go to Qatar, and the Qatari foreign minister was asked whether or not his country would be normalizing ties with Israel. And he said, no, there are no plans to normalize ties with Israel. They will, however, continue to cooperate and work with the Palestinians. Now, this follows an op-ed in the Arab Times by the editor-in-chief, who is Kuwaiti, who went on to say that it's enough of the mega financing of the Palestinian cause. It has only led to more conflict. There has been no show of gratitude towards their benefactors. And instead of gratitude, all they have received is abuse and support for Houthi rebel forces, who, of course, are backed by Iran. The editor went on to say, let those who are ungrateful basically fend for themselves, and called on all Gulf states to normalize ties with Israel, saying that it was important that Gulf countries do so. Israel is a powerful country and it can only benefit those in the region. So definite food for thought. But strengthening ties hopefully will be Israel and Turkey. Turkey's President Tayyip Erdogan announced earlier today that a visit by our President Isaac Herzog is expected in the middle of next month. President Herzog's office, however, has not commented whether or not the visit is scheduled. And I cannot believe that the President made his historic trip to the United Arab Emirates just this week. It certainly has seemed like ages since that happened, but it was only a few days ago. So a nice point to end this very, very stressful week, certainly for all of us working to bring you the news from Israel. And all that's left for me is to wish you all a peaceful, a safe and a healthy weekend. Stay safe and healthy wherever you are in the world. From all of us at Lay of the Land and the Israel Brief, I'm Marlene Marks, wishing you all Shabbat Shalom, and we'll join each other for those top stories making those headlines again on Monday.